What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the second part of a story where Issei broke up with his harem and decided to leave. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now, let's get into part 2. 35 years later. Ark Castle, Arcadian main city, 7:30 AM. In one of the personal bedroom of the Ark Castle, a man was sleeping on the bed. He soon woke up. He was a tall, brown-eyed man with matching brown hair that has a small white streak. He wears a pajamas with a red dragon on its covers. The man was none other than Issei Hyoudou, who was all grown up. No longer he was a perverted teenager, nor even a depressed man. He was completely different, as he spoke with a sigh. It's been 35 years since I came here. Issei muttered with a yawn. He remembered on how time passed as he was in Arcadia. He settled down in the place. He graduated from Academia and Magic Academy, eventually settling into the army and moving up the ranks, reaching that of a general. He wondered what was even going on in his world. He hasn't seen his parents and sisters since the past 35 years, and things have become better for him. He eventually became one of the Big Four and is considered the strongest man in all of Arcadia. His thoughts were snapped when someone yawned. Issei turned his gaze to a very beautiful woman. She was described as a brownish golden-haired woman, wearing a black pajamas, and her hair was not fixed. This was Juniper Ark, his wife, with whom he has been married for 30 years. "Morning, darling." Juniper spoke with a smile, as Issei returned the smile to her. Opening start. The screen shows the system as it starts to load the stats. It changes to a man, surrounded by multiple enemies. It shows Issei preparing for battle, where it soon follows with the others. Juniper, Willow, and a purple-haired woman along with her family are looking at the scene. The scene changes to a smiling white-haired man and a blue-haired woman. The scene changes to a tomb where a white-haired man is giving a side glare as a skeleton man is walking towards him. Soon 3 beings show up with sinister smiles. The Ark family, Ark siblings, and the Arcadian army is shown. The scene changes to Issei facing off against a black-haired woman with a lavender-haired woman in chains. The television screen is shown where Issei is facing against Rias, the latter having hate-filled eyes in her. Juniper is seen fighting off against Akeno, as the former has a smile, while the latter has a glare. The rest of the Arcadian Arks, along with Hyoudou, Jinshiro, Gasper and Mary all assist them. Mary has a water serpent surrounding her. The scene changes to the skeleton god making an alliance with a white-haired man and their subordinates all working together. The swords is shown which is wielded by Issei. The scene changes to Issei and his allies all looking at the sunset as he turns around and gives a smile at the camera. Opening ends. "Morning to you too, my dear Empress." Juniper responded a smile as she pulled him towards him and cupped his face as she pulled him for a kiss, which lasted for a minute, after which she spoke. "You know, today is our 30-year anniversary. Have you planned for something?" Juniper asked with a smile as Issei spoke. "I am not sure. I mean, is there any location you wish to go? We can go there, just the 2 of us. We can roam around in one of the Earths, have a normal date like a regular couple." Juniper responded as Issei asked, "But our duties?" "It is lessened and both of us will be in our office finishing the last of the paperwork. I mean, we did have a really messy war in the past few years, right?" Juniper spoke sadly, remembering the infamous Ark civil war that shattered their family, turning many of the Arks against them. People that they used to once call family broke away from them and turned against them. Issei also remembered on how many of their own turned against them for power and fame, willing to murder innocents just for the fun of it. It was all started by the man they once saw as family, that both Issei and Juniper saw as a son, Nicholas Ark, or Nicholas Kane. His betrayal broke their family, especially the Ark siblings that saw him as an older brother figure. It broke their youngest daughter as well the most. It took Juniper nearly dying for the family to start hating him to be finally deal with him once and for all. Unfortunately, the man responsible for the civil war was still very much alive, along with some of his allies, and are still being looked after, and as a result many of the Arcadians were in the 4 kingdoms to locate for the Black Arms, the organization that was once Arcadian, but became their enemy under the leadership of Vlad Ark when their oldest daughter was just a few months. Almost a year old. He was exiled after the stunt, and it was fine for years until Nicholas joined in, and eventually that was what caused a civil war that lasted for a year, taking the lives of many innocent people. Eventually, they were defeated, but the main branch escaped to an unknown location, and the Arcadians have been locating them ever since. They were not in the 4 kingdoms yet, given the spies there haven't noticed any cells present surprisingly, meaning they were not here. They were still somewhere out there. Hey, it's alright, we all are at least together, right? And we have all been living a happy life, so far haven't we? Issei mused. He couldn't imagine abandoning Juniper or their children. He pulled his wife closer to him, and she rests her head on his chest smiling. They still love each other, even after a lot of hurdles that got in their way. Juniper remembered Issei's fear of women, which she noticed when she along with the rest of the Big Four asked to share a room, where Issei awkwardly wanted to choose a different room. They immediately understood that Issei feared something, but he had no reason to fear any of them, even Aisha was someone he should not fear, before her insanity, where it ended up with them sealing her up. Eventually the cat was out of the bag, and needless to say, Juniper and the other girls were livid at what the girls from their old world had done to Issei. Especially a certain Ria's Gremory, whom Juniper wanted to personally deal with. Despite this, Issei still held fear that they are only teasing him and never truly cared for him. That all changed one day during the trials where Issei got his own Icon Knights of the Round, and he had to outright confront his fears, and where Juniper saw his former perverted side, he looked at her expecting to abandon him, but she did not. She accepted him, and even told the apparitions that they had no right to judge him, especially when some of them used to sleep with him naked, as she presumed them to be mere sluts that did so. They toyed with his heart, and that was what prevented him from getting over his fears. Time passed and they dealt with Willow, who had become corrupted and saved their friend from completely falling to the dark side. Eventually they worked together. Sephiroth was still there in Willow, but she changed and became better. The day came when Juniper came to him and confessed to him. Issei, no longer bound by his fear, accepted their confession, and that was the day they became a couple, 30 years later, and they were happily married with several kids. I guess. Juniper spoke with a sigh. She hated that she was toyed by Nicholas, someone she saw as her very own son, seeing several similarities between him and Issei. But he was power hungry and did not care for anyone, broke their relationship with him and abandoned them, not caring for the consequences. They never knew what caused him to turn on the Arcs after 20 years, but they had to stop him at all costs, which they succeed in it. However, Nicholas, Vlad and Carmilla managed to escape, and now they had to look out for them. They will find the trio and bring them to justice. In the aftermath, the couple had to work hard in order to restore the alliance between many of the kingdoms, which they succeeded after a back and forth. The man they saw as a son was vile, arrogant and had no regards for anyone but himself. With the power he's gained in Arcadia, he became boastful, thinking no one can touch him, but still is smart enough to avoid provoking certain individuals. He is manipulative, able to persuade anyone to his side. He has no regards for life, not caring how many lives he's ruined or how many people he hurt. He would do anything for his goal, and what was his goal? Complete and utter control of Arcadia and the whole world. He was the sole reason why Arcadia or Arcadians now truly hated and distrusted those that came from the Four Kingdoms. There was a time when Arcadians were more open to letting people of the Four Kingdoms in, with Ren being such an example, but with what Nicholas did, there was no way that was going to work. The Arcadians truly did not care about the Four Kingdoms, even if they suffered, since they are nothing but vile, arrogant and power hungry, some are even greedy. His goal was to win the current empress's heart, however Issei already was the emperor, and he had married Juniper by that point, which internally angered the wannabe megalomaniac. He decided to manipulate them as an older brother figure and a loving son. Before ultimately turning on them, causing the civil war to happen. Even in his final moments, before escaping he still showed utter disdain for Issei and wanted to take his place as the new emperor of Arcadia, but that was not going to happen no matter what. Heading back to the present, now they have been having peaceful lives, there was peace for the moment. Issei rubbed his wife's head calming her down. She was particularly close to Nicholas, and his betrayal still had its after effects in her heart, making her having trust issues, just like Issei once had. But there was her family, her lover and their kids that she will trust without any issues. Juniper looked at Issei and he spoke, "You know, I still think that I did not do enough, but Nicholas, he chose this path. He never loved us and we were just people that he could toy with just like Rainer and even Ria's." Issei spoke with a nod, "Yes. But know this." Issei kissed on her forehead making her flustered, as he continued, "I will always be by your side." I know. Juniper looked at her husband, she was helping him locate his family and loved ones. But there was no hope, the world was too far, but to no avail. She promised Issei to help him locate his family, but they were unable to. They could only hope that one day, she could meet his family. The Arcs see Issei as their own, even when he does not have the blood of one, as bonds are what make the Arcs, it was never blood. Those that sided with Nicholas weren't true Arcs to begin with. Juniper, let's get ready, I wish to have a memorable 30-year anniversary, and I don't want my wife to be in such a state. Juniper gave a smile to Issei's words, as the latter responded, "Yeah, let's get ready, we will talk to my father about heading out for our anniversary celebration." "Yep, and that smile is something I want to see." Juniper looked at him and nodded. If it was not for her, she wouldn't have been the same. Scene change. Moments pass and the couple were still in the room as they were having a cup of coffee. Juniper soon sat on the opposite on the table. Issei now wore a grey and white dress coat with a scarf and black armor on his chest. He also wears glasses, dark brown pants, black shoes, and a black glove on his right hand. Juniper was now wearing a dark-colored dress. She wore a hat like a hoodie that covers her hair, and a brown belt with golden ornaments holstered around her hips. Her sleeves are also well decorated. She wears white gloves, black leggings, and golden heels. She takes a sip of her coffee and speaks. I think the kids have also gotten up, haven't they? Issei nodded, remembering that the kids have finally gotten some time to rest and recover. He decided to give them some time to mature and grow up until the throne would be passed to the heir the Arc Council have decided. Even Issei himself was personally chosen and monitored by the Arc Council before he became the emperor. Yep, I think they should be coming to our place soon unless they have other appointments. Juniper gave a sigh, remembered their son's antics. She had a feeling that he would be up to something. Hey, he is living his dream as the harem king. Juniper gave a glare to Issei when he spoke that word, making him shudder as she gave another tired sigh. I thought he would settle with her, but then, from what I hear about him, I have a feeling that he has even more girls. But didn't you want grandbabies? Juniper looked at him and spoke, I do. He will be fine, he is our son, and he is a good leader in his battalion. I did personally train him after all, Issei spoke, remembering that he was trained despite protests from Nicholas, but Issei wanted his son to be ready. Even Juniper agreed to this, and even in some cases trained the boy, along with his sisters that supported him. I know, Juniper responded. She remembered that all their children not only were pure dragons, but also had the powers of Great Red and Office, along with a portion of the strength from the Red Dragon Emperor, with some of them even inheriting the gamer system from their father's side. But they also inherited the icons along with the powers they already were born with. As a result, Issei knew that their children would be fine regardless. As for the ones that didn't inherit them, they will inherit them in the near future. Regardless, Issei and Juniper will love and raise their children well. Speaking of which, Juniper got up and approached Issei as she wrapped her arms around Issei as she spoke, we can have a moment here and you can even show your perverted side here. Juniper knew about Issei's perverted side. Ever since he became the emperor, he became more mature and understanding, almost becoming a true king in the eyes of many Arcadians. However, there was still perversion in him, and he often showed that to his wife, who actually did not mind, not seeing this as a character flaw. He looked at her breasts. They were surprisingly big, not as big as Akeno, but was on par with Ria's. It was good enough for Issei, as Issei spoke. Then, if you don't mind. Issei used his free hand to grope Juniper's breasts, making her moan as she let her instincts take over her and started to make out with Issei. It almost felt blissful, even now. Soon they split up as Issei used his second hand to start touching her second breast, making her moan even more. However, before they could continue even further, someone knocked on the door. Dad, Mom, are you there? The couple immediately became flustered and were fixing their clothing, knowing it was one of their daughters that was outside. Juniper immediately got down and fixed herself as she spoke. Give us a minute, Bianca. We will be ready. Juniper exclaimed as she removed the expression she had as Issei soon spoke, come in. Bianca soon came inside. She was a tall woman with brown hair and blue eyes. A part of her is braided up in the right side and has a small gold ornament on her left side that is tied to a ribbon. She wears platinum armor with gold trimmings, with an opening in her chest area. She has no armor in her waist area or the area near her thighs, and wears purple and brown robes, with a belt connected to a holster for her gun and sword. She also wears 2 purple robes as a cape. This was Bianca Arc, 28 years old, the oldest daughter of Issei Hyoudou and Juniper Arc, and the oldest child of the family. Happy anniversary, Mom, Dad. Bianca rushed to her parents and gave them a warm hug, as Issei and Juniper returned the hug, as they soon split up. Bianca then spoke. So Mom, Dad, what are you two planning to do? Juniper spoke with a thought. I have heard of a few places we can go on Earth 21. That actually does not sound like a bad idea. We will go a sightseeing adventure there, and since many of the inhabitants don't know of our true identity, and we can go on a normal couple. Issei added, to which Bianca spoke. That is not a bad idea, and speaking of which, aren't you too old to be, you know? Bianca spoke with a red tint on her face as Issei tried to explain. Bianca, However, Juniper cuts him off and speaks jokingly, oh Bianca, you should be happy that your parents are still showing affection like this, and I am pretty sure you understand what was happening here. But that doesn't mean that you should perform such acts. If you want, you can do it in your room. Bianca tried to retort, as Juniper spoke with a sweat drop, but this is our room, Bianca. Bianca did not have any retorts to that and remained silent, as Juniper spoke jokingly, keep up that attitude, and you will still remain single. Mom, Bianca shouted in embarrassment as Juniper chuckled in response, as Issei gave a wry smile at this. Seeing his daughter act like this did bring a smile to his face. She soon coughed and composed herself. Either way, I also came was because Aunt Jean had called for something important. She said it was important to you, Dad. Issei was surprised as he spoke. Me? Yes, and she wanted the two of you to meet her as soon as possible, and Aqua is waiting as well. Bianca spoke with a smile, as Issei responded, sure, let's go. Scene change. Arcadian Military Headquarters, 10:30 a.m. The Arcadian Military Headquarters, which is a huge building located in the Arcadian main city, it was a highly advanced glass tech building. It serves as the headquarters of the entire Arcadian military. This facility is usually busy and filled with people doing their daily business. We can see battleships in the waters and even cruisers hovering in the facility. This headquarters is heavily guarded and its security is off the highest level. All major operations, meetings, and other stuff related to the army happens here. This place serves as the main HQ of all affairs related to the Arcadian army, even proposals when it comes to alliances with the other nations and races. Issei and Juniper along with Bianca, as they encountered Aqua, she was described to be a blonde-haired woman with grey eyes. She wore a hat on her head and a flower on her hair. She wore a military uniform, which comprised of a white and green skirt. She held a sniper rifle behind her back. She additionally wore gloves and wore 2 heels, with her left leg having a legging. This was Aqua Arc, 25 years, the third daughter of Issei Hyoudou and Juniper Arc. Happy anniversary. Aqua spoke as she jumped on her parents, with them returning the hug as well. They soon split up, as Aqua speaks. Well, Aunt Jean is waiting for you. Aqua mused as Issei and Juniper nodded, as the four head to that location, as Issei asks. Where are the others? Aqua spoke with a thought. The others, most of them are preparing something important, although neither I nor Bianca are going to spoil it. Sorry mom, dad. Don't worry, I would love to see what my kids have planned. Aqua gave a smile to what her father had spoken, as Juniper also was happy, seeing how much Issei has changed over the years, becoming a well-supportive and caring father, never leaving any of his children, and being there for them no matter what. They soon headed ahead, where they were greeted by a woman donning black armor with long blonde hair, which has a crown on top of it. She wears black arm guards on both her arms, and a white skirt that is flowing down. This is Jean Arc, the Supreme General of the Arcadian Army. Greetings, Empress, Emperor, I am glad the two of you could make it. Jean spoke with a smile, as Issei responded. Yeah, it's nice to see you again, Jean. Anyways, what have you called us here? Jean spoke with a smile. 2 visitors have come for you. You once told me about some people important to you, right? Yeah. Issei did not hide his old world from his family. He informed them everything before he came to Arcadia, even to Nicholas, who was present back when he was on their side. He told them about how he nearly died thanks to Samuel's poison, and even told them about his parents and older sister. The only one who knew this before was the Big Four, along with Liam and Ulsi, but that day everyone else came to know as well. Many of the children of Issei couldn't help but be proud of the hero that their father was. They knew of his nature, and they did not judge him for being a perverted teenager who was known to screaming Oppai. Additionally, him being the Oppai dragon, which was a hero to the children of the underworld, even made things better, and that along with his heroic deeds, made many of the Arc seeing this as truly heroic and down to earth despite the obvious lewdness. At first, Issei wasn't sure about telling them, but with Juniper talking to him and convincing him to tell them, since they were a family and he eventually did open up to them, as a result almost all of them except Nicholas were proud on how much of a selfless hero he was, who almost died to save his old world from the beast of apocalypse. He was accepted despite his flaws of being a pervert. He showed none of his perversion in Arcadia because of his trauma and fear. That was the day he saw the Arcs as his family, and no one criticized him as well. His perversion was barely there, only limited to his wife and never went outside, but some of his children have inherited his perverted behavior. Indeed, I will tell you who those people are. Jean spoke with a tone full of seriousness, yet there was an underlying concern in her tone as she spoke. Those people are Surzich's Lucifer and Shiva, one of the Trimurti of the Hindu faction, that belonged to that of your old world. No sooner he heard those names, Issei almost staggered. It's been 35 years since he has even met Surzich's. He never thought they would come here. Juniper looked at his expression and became worried. She knew who Surzich's was. He was Issei's older brother figure and Satan Lucifer. As for Shiva, she did not know him in person, since Issei did not know who the god of destruction was. They are waiting for you, Emperor. Jean spoke. She knew that her expression was worried, while Bianca and Aqua were concerned for their father. Juniper kept his hand on her husband's hand and spoke. Don't worry, Jean, we will go there. I understand, I will let them know. Jean spoke as she contacted a soldier. Juniper then took her husband outside, as she spoke with a worried tone. It's going to be okay, Ice, it is going to be okay. Issei spoke with a shaky tone as he continued with the same disbelieving tone. It's been 35 years since I saw any of them. I don't know if they would ever know. Issei had tears in his eyes. He never would have guessed they would come for him instead of going back there. He was worried whether they would know him or not. Juniper hugged her husband as his daughters soon followed, with Juniper speaking. It's alright, Ice, it's alright. Juniper spoke while rubbing his back as Issei started to tear up even more, with Aqua speaking. Come on dad, you are better than this, you know you will come for them one day, instead they came for you. Bianca soon followed it up, Dad, you will be alright, we all will go and talk to them. Plus, I would love to meet my grandparents and my aunt one day. Issei stayed like this for a moment before looking at them and gave a nod. He had to talk to them, as he must have realized that they have come for them. Scene change. Issei and his family walked towards the room where two people had meet up with them. Issei recognized the first person to be Surzich's Lucifer, which made Issei wide-eyed. He took a deep breath to calm himself down, as Surzich's spoke with a respectful tone. Good evening Emperor and Empress of Arcadia, my name is Surzich's Lucifer, and I am one of the 4 Satans of the Devil faction. It is nice to meet you. Shiva also introduced himself as he spoke. My name is Shiva, one of the 3 pillar gods. I wanted to give you my greetings, your highness. Shiva got up and spoke with a bow, with Surzich's following suit. Juniper walked forward and spoke, it is nice to meet you as well, Lord Lucifer. My name is Juniper, and these are our daughters Aqua and Bianca. Greetings, Lord Lucifer, it is nice to meet you. Bianca spoke respectfully as Aqua soon spoke, hello, it's nice to meet you, my name is Aqua Arc. Aqua spoke cheerfully and respectfully, as Surzich's greeted them in response. It is nice to meet you too as well. Lady Aqua, Lady Bianca. Surzich's spoke respectfully, as he looked at the Emperor and asked, aren't you going to introduce yourself? Issei had a feeling that Surzich's must have forgotten him, not that Issei blames him, as Juniper spoke with a smile, didn't you recognize him, Lord Lucifer? Surzich's looked at Issei for a moment, before sensing his energy and aura, there was no way it could be him of all people. He even looked at Issei for a moment, his expression almost seemed like an older version, or more accurately, an older version of his lost younger brother figure. Even Shiva was himself surprised, he read his mind and it was really him, the same pillar that got lost during the fight against Trihexa. It has almost been 3.5 years since any of them have seen him. He was even presumed dead, and now here he is, the Emperor of Arcadia, Issei Hyoudou. Issei, is that really you? Surzich's tone was full of disbelief as he spoke, how have you been? I have been fine. Issei spoke while looking away, his tone has been completely saddened. Surzich's knew how much his disappearance had changed many things back home, and he himself never gave up on locating him. Many others did the same as well, as Surzich's spoke. You know, we all missed you, and I am not going to lie, I never thought I would find you here with them being your family, never thought you would be the legendary hero of Arcadia, and its emperor as well, and from what I presume, Aqua and Bianca are your daughters, right? Surzich's spoke as he sensed the girl's signature to be similar to their father's as Issei nodded. Yep, but these 2 are not my only girls, there are 6 others as well, and it's been so long I haven't seen any of you for 35 years. Surzich's and Shiva were surprised by this, for them they have not seen Issei for 3.5 years. Additionally, Issei having even more kids surprised them even more than before. He had a family here, and that alone made them conflicted. They were happy for him, but they weren't sure if he even wanted to come back. 35 years. Issei, none of us have seen you for 3.5 years, Surzich's spoke with confusion, to which none of them were able to understand this. 3.5 years, I haven't met any of you for 35 years, hell, I feared that you would have forgotten us. Issei spoke with disbelief, making the 2 wonder on what just happened, as Juniper spoke with agreement. Issei is right, in fact Bianca herself is pretty old, he was here for the past 35 years, when he first was found by me. Shiva noticed neither of them were lying, they had no reason to do so, as the god of destruction spoke, I see. Lord Surzich's, neither the Empress nor Issei are lying. Surzich's looked at him and nodded, as Aqua explained, my guess is that Remnant is faster in time as opposed to the Earth where Dad is from, that is why it is almost like when 1 year is over in Earth, it is 10 years over in Remnant. That does make sense, Lady Aqua. Shiva spoke with a calm tone, as he nodded. Surzich's then spoke, so Issei, what will you do now? Your parents and sister still presume you to be gone, you can come back. Issei did not know what to say, while Aqua and Bianca were worried that they may have to say goodbye to their father, he may not come back to them for a very long time. Juniper knew this day would come, where she would have to say goodbye to Issei, since he had to return back to his world. She looked at him sadly, knowing he will end up going back to his world. She dreaded this day, but knew that forcefully keeping him here won't fix anything, she could only hope he comes back, since his family was here as well. I am sorry Surzich's, I can't come back, I have my wife and children here, and I can't leave them be. Surzich's looked at him for a moment and spoke with a sad smile, we understand Issei, but what would you do now, you can't abandon them as well. I know, I just don't know what to do. Issei responded, as Juniper had to quickly think of a solution, as she soon remembered something. She knew that her husband can't abandon either of them, not her family and their children, and neither he could abandon his own family. Right, Lord Lucifer, how about I propose this idea? Surziches looked at Juniper as she continued, you wish to make an alliance with Arcadia, we have an alliance with many of the Earths, so why not make it with another? Wait, you wish to make an alliance with us? Surziches spoke as Shiva added, and what do you mean other Earths? One at a time, for Lord Shiva's question, yes there are more than one Earth in the universe, and yours is one of them, but the one where Issei is from is an unknown Earth, so we have been locating that ever since, but you guys coming here was not something we were expecting. Juniper spoke as the two men nodded, then she continued. Now as for Lord Lucifer's question, and we don't mind making an alliance, Ice has already told me about you guys, so Arcadia sees no problem. Additionally, that way we can make sure that everyone that lives in that world can come here, and vice versa, although time can be a bit problematic. But we can find a way. Juniper spoke the idea as Surziches and Shiva both seemed to not mind the idea, as Surziches spoke. We don't mind to have you joining us, Empress, a faraway alien land is something we don't mind and are not against. Surziches spoke as Juniper responded, great then, we will meet again soon Surziches, and make sure to bring the rest of the other leaders as well. As you wish, your highness. Juniper shook her head and spoke, please call me Juniper while we are in private. Surziches nodded and gave a smile as Shiva soon spoke, oh and before I go, there is something else we need to tell you. Shiva sat down and spoke, there has been some recent activity going on with my scouts, the demigods and other gods from my faction, has been sending me this image. Shiva used a magic circle and brought out an image as he showed it to them, making the two go as pale, even the two Arc siblings also become horrified, knowing what exactly they were seeing. They were soldiers of top military gear. They had a light gray faceplate with black colored military gear. There was also partial gray coloring inside their black colored gear, which was their inner shirt. These were the Black Arm soldiers. No way, Lord Shiva, where did you find this image? Juniper spoke with fear and anger in her voice, as Shiva was surprised by this sudden change in the atmosphere, as he knew something bad must have happened in this world. It was found by my scouts near the underworld area, where Hades' realm is present, their activity is the highest there, and it was not only me, even the faction leaders found out about this. We don't know who these soldiers are, but all we know is that Hades is up to something. Both Juniper and Issei looked at each other, meaning the Black Arms found their planet before anyone else could do so. This was a massive problem, as Aqua explained. Lord Shiva, that image belonged to a terrorist organization in our world, they are called the Black Arms. Both the leaders became wide-eyed, meaning that those men are from a terrorist organization. This was a massive problem, and they had to inform this to the other leaders as well. What are they? Surziches asked as Issei spoke worryingly, they are as bad if not worse than the Cows Brigade, they have caused the deaths of many Arcadians, and have done some serious damage to Arcadia and their allies, their actions have even extended to the alien worlds as well, and this includes other Earths. So this means Hades is working with them? Surziches spoke with fear, as Issei nodded, yes, I fear the most Juniper, we can only do one thing. I am aware, turns to Surziches, we have to hasten our alliance, that is our only option, Arcadia is willing to help to deal with them as well, inform the others of our meeting as soon as possible, I will let the others in our world know as well. Surziches nodded in understanding to Juniper's words, the gravity of the situation was really bad if it caused the atmosphere to change to such an extent, as he spoke. Very well Juniper, I will let them know. Surziches and Shiva soon took their leaves, as Issei and Juniper looked at each other, as Issei spoke. We will inform the council about this, no way I am going to let them hurt my family back home. Issei spoke with a growl as Juniper spoke, yes, I know, I am not letting them get hurt as well. Aqua, Bianca called the council, we need to let them know that we have found the remnants of the Black Arms in the Earth where Issei is from, also known as Earth DXD. As you wish, mother. Bianca spoke seriously as they all started to inform the others about the situation. This war will end one way or another, and Hades will pay for his involvement with the Black Arms. Issei and Juniper, along with Aqua and Bianca, were with the Arc Council, as the council was well briefed on what the Black Arms and what they are doing. They were horrified to know that they managed to reach all the way there to Issei's homeworld, which caused them fear and concern, as Issei warned them on the potential threats that were present. One of them was Hades, since he always was a problem, and had a hand in working with the Cows Brigade. This is a problem, the Black Arms managed to gain access to the DXD world and worse they are in leagues with Hades. Liam spoke with worry as Alcy, who was the mother of Juniper Arc. She was described to be an elf that had navy blue hair and hollow eyes, her hair is short length, and she wore a veil covering her face. She had pointed ears that had earrings on them, which were crescent moon in design. She also wore royal clothing. She wore gold ornaments, a light blue cape and navy blue garment, she soon added. You are right on that one Liam, worse Hades has access to Samuel's poison, which is a death sentence on its own, especially to anyone that is a dragon. Alcee spoke with worry, as those that had dragon blood, especially Issei, flinched upon hearing this. They knew on how dangerous Amel's blood it was. Not to mention, Issei has already told us that even being struck by a small dosage can deal some serious damage, enough to render someone like Office from infinite to finite. Worse, it even killed Issei, resulting in him being in the body that he is today. The one who spoke was Galath, who was described to be a man whose stature and look is giving off an intimidating appearance. He has black hair and bright gold eyes. He wears black robes that have gold ornaments all over him, especially in his chest where it resembles a necklace. But the worst part is, Carmilla is still alive, and we all know on how much of an catastrophic attack the Black Arms created was, which began the civil war. There is no telling what she can do with Samel. She can even make it such that it can potentially kill dragon gods, and even other beings. Juniper's tone was filled with fear when Issei told her about Samel. Her expression had dread and horror that she would never forget. She shuddered, fearing that her and even their children would get struck by Samel's blood. They will die agonizing deaths, which her husband did experience. You are right on that, sister. Just what was the biblical god thinking when he made a freak like Samel? The one who spoke with fear was Artemis, Juniper's younger sister and Liam's youngest daughter. She was a woman of average height who gives off an appearance of a fairy. This is due to the wings that are on her back, which are blue. She has white hair tied into a ponytail, has pale skin, and bright blue eyes. She wears a light blue dress with the chest part having a floral design. We don't know, but only me and Volley survived the poison, and that is saying something. If Hades or the Black Arms is able to do it, then not only will Arcadia be in danger, we all will also be in danger, Issei spoke with worry, as Liam added. Then it's settled, we will have an alliance with your Earth, but we must make it quickly, else both worlds are doomed. Liam's voice had fear in it, as they knew how dire the situation is, as Juniper spoke. Yes, we shall do that. Father Juniper's tone was serious. They had to stop the Black Arms at all costs, otherwise they are done for. In the Four Kingdoms. Beacon Academy, 8:30 p.m. Two teams were having a conversation that were teams RWBY and JNPR as they were seated in the Beacon cafeteria. He was bored senseless, but primarily for the shitstorm of events that have happened. When John revealed his transcripts to Purr, he was half expecting to abandon him, since back then, it was still not authenticated due to how slow the processing took in Beacon, but she did not. She understood the reasoning, and eventually she accepted him. Eventually the fake transcripts were also revealed to Yang, Ruby, Blake, Weiss, Nora and Lai, all of whom accepted him much to his surprise again. He expected Yang and Ruby to abandon him due to Ruby having a fairy tale mindset thanks to her mother, whom John still held anger against due to her being the reason why several of his friends had died. But he remembered his father's words. Don't judge them because they are from the Four Kingdoms or they remind you of someone from your past. Let their personality be the one to decide whether they are like the rest of the outsiders or whether they are different. Trust only those that your heart tells you to do. Look at my past. Just because Raynor screwed with me doesn't mean I hate all fallen angels. I used to distrust them, but some I can fully trust. Cases point Azazel, so trust only those that your heart and soul tell you to, John. This actually sat well with John, since he looked up to his father a lot. After all, when Nicholas, someone who he deemed as an older brother, had no interest in training him. Issei believed in him and personally trained him. His training still haunts John, but that was the best thing that could have happened to him. Issei's training was almost akin to Tannen's training, allowing John to be prepared for what comes next. Regardless, it did not save him from his transcripts from being exposed from those that held a grudge, since he had no reason to pretend being weak. John put some of the more arrogant ones in their places and they exposed his transcripts. Needless to say, he was harassed at every step. But John at first let it happen until the attack started to extend to his friends and teammates, and if there is anything you should know about John, it is that, in terms of personality, he is a carbon copy of his father Issei with some small differences inherited from his mother. He does not tolerate if any of his friends get injured and will fight against even a god if that person does threaten or harm them. He will destroy anyone that is bold enough or stupid enough to try and harm them. This all happened when a student that hated John threw a huge rock towards Ruby, causing her to get a concussion, knocking her out cold, much to John's horror, and that was when he decided enough is enough. In combat class, he remembered on how Glinda Goodwitch, someone who hated him for fake transcripts, decided to set him up with all those that had hated him. This was due to John calling her out on how much of a terrible teacher she is and is a pathetic and sorry excuse of a professor. Scene change. Flashback begins. He decided to put everyone that had tried to harm his friends in their places. It was nothing short of a bloodbath. He was now in his armor. The armor he is wearing is described to be purple in color, having gold armor parts to go along with it. The design of the armor is angular and spiky, you can literally scratch anyone with this armor. The helmet is fitted with 2 spikes that represent devil horns and has a visor that glows red, representing 2 eyes. It is also sporting a red cape. The Beacon students truly didn't stand a chance. John didn't give them a second to attack him as he unleashed his power, wiping them out in an instant. Glinda did intervene, ordering John to stop this madness. But all she was met was a blast of magical energy that sent her crashing to the wall. John stood over the student that was the reason for Ruby's concussion and looked at his lying body coldly. He has bruises and scratches all over her body as he looks up at John. He steps on his hand, crushing every bone on it. He screams in pain and agony as John does this. How are you this strong, you damned faker? The student even in his final moments cursed John as he grabbed the student by his collar. He shivered in complete fear knowing the monster he was as he spoke. There is one thing I don't tolerate, and it is anyone that harms my friends or family. Be grateful that I can't kill you, you damned outsider. John muttered the last part coldly as he slammed the student to the ground. He twirls his sword around, sparks flying out of it before it turns into a blade engulfed with red and purple energy. Fire and electricity are coursing through it. John raises his sword up towards the ceiling and fires off a beam that destroys the entire ceiling, the beam reaching out all the way to the sky. Witness domination. John exclaimed as he delivered a downward slash that destroyed the entire arena, causing an explosion that released fire and electricity in huge waves, which hit the Beacon students, causing them to scream in pain and agony. He does this for 5 minutes, until he stops, since if he wanted to, he could have destroyed their souls. Yes, John inherited Issei Hyoudou's flames of complete annihilation, which meant that his flames never stopped burning until the target's body including his soul was burned, resulting in nothing left. He looked to his tormentors and Glinda, who all had third burns and were twitching due to the electric current. John turned away and spoke coldly, "Know your place, outsiders." Scene change. Flashback ends. John smiled, remembering the incident that showed him that he is not to be messed with. Ruby looks at her friend and asks, "Is something the matter?" "Nothing much. Speaking of which, what plans do you guys have for summer break?" John asked, to which Weiss responded, "I will be going back to my home. My father demands for me to return and handle the company." Weiss spoke with a sigh as she remembered on how controlling her so-called father is. She wondered when she will escape from this place, as her mother only asked her to tolerate him for a little while. She would be sent to a place where she would be safe, as Ruby spoke. "No worries, Weiss, just give us a call and we will set us up for a place. You can consider bringing us to one of the houses. Would you convince him to do that?" Yang asked, hoping that Weiss does not have her vacations rough. She knows of what kind of a person Jacques is and hopes that Weiss is alright. As for Weiss, she knows that her mother will deal with her father. She, like all of the Schnee children, know how much Willow despises Jacques, and it is only a matter of when his head will fall off his body. Willow hasn't told her the complete truth yet, not because she did not trust any of her children, but because she fears that her children will hate her because of her actions as Sephiroth. Additionally, Willow had no intention of raising Weiss and her sisters at first, but Issei talked to her and convinced her to not abandon them, since he also warned that her children will become like Jacques, and that alone will haunt the woman. As a result, he was aware that Willow was already guilt-ridden because of her actions as Sephiroth, and Issei did not want her to suffer even more. As a result, due to his convincing, Willow vowed to never let Jacques' influence get to her children and raise them in secret. As a result, Weiss, Winter and Whitley never became like Jacques and always hated their father, given his nature. "Anyways, what about you, John? Where do you plan on heading to for your vacations?" John spoke while rubbing his back. "I will be heading back to my hometown. I do miss my family." Lai then asked in response, "Can we come with you?" "As much as I would like to, I am afraid, not sorry." Lai sighed in sadness as Nora spoke, "So what are you going to do back home?" "I will be talking with my parents and some friends of mine. I kind of miss them." John remembered some of his squad girls. He wished to be between their breasts as he shook his head, not showing his perverted side to those from the Beacon students. This was also something he inherited from his father. Despite this, he was an honorable pervert, being more open about his desires, which was surprisingly accepted by his squad. However, from his father's experiences, he was careful on who to be with. Issei also warned him to choose his lover carefully, since Issei had experienced failed relationships, and John took that advice to his heart. "So will we meet them? Or can you introduce us to them?" Ruby asked. John did not want to make promises he wouldn't be able to fulfill, primarily because of many Arcadians' hatred of the Four Kingdoms, which they call outsiders, and John was no exception. However, Team RWBY and his team had proven themselves to him, but not to the rest of Arcadia, so they may end up hating them just because they have the blood of outsiders, especially some races he was aware of. "I will think about it." John gave the best answer as he could, as they all nodded in understanding. Suddenly John's scroll started to ring, and he saw the called ID. Giving a smile, he looked to his friends. Can you give me a moment of privacy? John asked as his friends nodded. He soon headed outside as he picked up the call. Person on the other side spoke. Hey John, how is your time at Beacon Academy? I hope you are not busy. John recognized the voice to be that of his father Issei as he responded. None, I just finished my talk with my friend's dad, so what is it that you want to talk about? John asked, to which Issei spoke. I have some news. I will be coming to Beacon personally in a few minutes, so I would suggest you to pack your stuff. You are coming back to Arcadia. Wait, right now? John asked, to which Issei responded. Yes, right now. I will explain everything once I reach there, so be prepared. You will be needing to say goodbye to your friends since you won't be seeing them for a long time. John nodded in understanding as he spoke. I will, Dad, I will. John spoke with a tone of understanding. He was going to say his goodbyes either way, so that is not going to be a problem, but he was going to miss them. He soon cuts the call and heads inside as he decides to pack his stuff. He soon heads to the headmaster's office, since that was where he sensed Issei's magic signature. As he was talking with the headmaster Osmond, he then spoke while standing up to greet his son. Hey son, been a while. Hey Dad. John rushed to give his father a hug as he spoke to him. Happy 30th anniversary. Thanks John. Issei spoke with gratitude as he looked to Osmond, who had a smile. He was almost akin to family as he spoke. So headmaster, I think you should call them as well. Indeed, I have already sent to come here. They should be arriving soon enough. Osmond spoke. As soon enough, Team CRDL arrived as they spoke with a bow. Your Highness. The four boys bowed before him as Issei spoke. How many times have I told you boys, address me as Uncle Issei while we are in private? Sorry, Uncle Issei, it's just a habit. Issei smiled in response as he spoke. Since you all are here, I believe it is time we brief about the situation, although before that, how was John in Beacon, Headmaster? Osmond nodded as he explained everything to Issei, who only narrowed his gaze. His joyful expression was lost as he becomes angry, making Team CRDL and John worried. John knew that it was very rare that their father showed anger. It was only when his family is under danger. He soon spoke with a glare. Osmond, call her here, right now. I would love to have some words with her. Osmond gulped. It was rare for the Emperor to show his anger, but when he does, someone is going to get hurt. He only showed it in Arcadia when Juniper was deplored and almost killed, resulting in Nicholas receiving a beating he would never forget. As you wish, Your Highness. Please go easy on her. Osmond immediately called for Glinda. Issei shook his head and spoke. No promises. Osmond gulped in fear and worry upon hearing this, as Glinda soon arrived and spoke. You called, and what is he doing here? Glinda spoke her words with spite, as Osmond only shook his head, knowing what is going to happen next. John and Team CRDL were worried on what was going to happen. So you must be Glinda, good witch. The headmaster told me a lot about you. Issei spoke while controlling his temper, as Glinda asked. Who are you? What brings you here? Glinda asked, to which Issei responded. Issei Hyoudou, John's father. It is not nice to meet you. That means you are the father of this damned monster. You should be ashamed as a father. You should punish him for his actions. And Glinda was unable to complete as Issei slapped her really hard on her face. Glinda could only look in shock. In the meantime, John scoffed at Glinda. However, he was worried about Issei losing it because of his anger, and with Glinda pissing off a dragon god, her chances of surviving are lessening. Team CRDL and Osmond were glaring at her for her attitude. And that gives you the right to harm my son. Your actions, as a professor entrusted with the education and well-being of students, are deeply troubling and reprehensible. It is gravely disappointing that you have neglected your responsibilities and inflicted harm upon my son. Such behavior not only tarnishes your own reputation, but also undermines the integrity of the academic institution you represent. Issei spoke coldly and with anger in his eyes, as Glinda was about to defend himself as she shouted while pulling out her weapon, the disciplinarian. Issei did not give her the chance as he used penetrate and grabbed her by the face with his left hand, and before she could react, Issei slammed her so hard on the wall that it caused it to crack. Your brazen defiance in the face of your reprehensible actions is utterly devoid of shame. Moreover, your audacity to retaliate only exacerbates the severity of the situation. Be advised, my restraint in this matter is a testament to my commitment to civility and justice, but should you ever again inflict harm upon my son, rest assured, you will face consequences of a magnitude you cannot fathom. I vow to ensure that you experience profound regret for your actions, and I will spare no effort in holding you accountable for any further transgressions. Your heedlessness of the consequences thus far does not grant you immunity from the repercussions that await should you continue down this path. Issei spoke as he looked at Glinda, who had a look of fear. She had several injuries, with her face being bruised, and it was bleeding from the blow Issei gave her, as he grabbed her by her clothes and spoke coldly. I promise you nothing but endless suffering. Glinda's voice trembled as she spoke, her breath shallow and ragged. The looming silhouette of the red dragon cast a foreboding shadow over her, intensifying her fear to unimaginable levels. The man before her exuded a palpable rage, his very presence a terrifying force that threatened to consume her. As her heart raced, Glinda struggled to maintain composure, the dread of what lay ahead paralyzing her with uncertainty. "Dad, don't no point in wasting your breath on this outsider." John spoke while keeping his hand on Issei, as he took a deep breath to calm himself down, as he spoke. "Now get out of my sight before I put you in your place, get out." Glinda nodded as she ran away with whatever strength she had, once she was out of sight. Issei looked at Ozpin and spoke after a moment. "We can now begin. I will fix the wall before I leave." Ozpin nodded as he asked, "But wasn't that too much, your highness?" "I actually held back. If my daughters or worse Juniper were here, let's just say bodies would have dropped." Ozpin gulped in understanding, as Issei only gave a sigh. John was glad that his mother or his sisters weren't here, his father was right. He shook his head, knowing that it would have been a bloodbath had they shown up here. "Anyways, I am here to explain why I am here, or why John needs to head back." Issei spoke as he brought out a hologram which showed images of the Black Arm soldiers. "No way. Black Arm's activity has been found," John exclaimed with shock as Ozpin responded. "But Issei, there was no location of them acting in the Four Kingdoms, neither did James nor Clover find any activity of them here." Ozpin spoke with complete shock, even Team CRDL were shocked by this revelation as Issei explained. "That is because they were never in the Four Kingdoms. Unlike the Shinra remnants, the Black Arms were never here to begin with." Issei then continued, as he spoke, "They are in my homeworld." John became pale, meaning his paternal grandparents along with his Aunt Mary were in danger. He looked at his father as Issei spoke. "Yes, John, Surzich's Lucifer and Lord Shiva of the Hindu pantheon managed to reach us and inform us about the situation, and the worst part is, Hades is working with them." Issei spoke with concern, as Ozpin asked. "Hades? The god of the underworld in your world, your highness." Issei gave a nod as he spoke. "Indeed, headmaster, indeed. And he is anything but good news. Hades has been a problem in my world for a very long time, but that is not what terrifies me." Issei changes to the hologram, to a being that was a large ominous creature with bizarre features, such as the upper body of a fallen angel, albeit with fangs in his mouth, and the lower body of an Asian dragon. "No way, is that Samuel?" John spoke with fear. He heard of stories of the dragon killer from his father, and also remembered on how his father mentioned about his death, along with an ally of his named Vali Lucifer, almost died from this monster. "Indeed, and with the Black Arms working, I think you all know what this means." John shuddered. He knew what his father was implying, meaning that they have the poison that can kill anyone with dragon blood, a painful and agonizing death. Not even their souls will survive the whole ordeal. This was all thanks to a certain woman from the Black Arms enhancing and working on his poison to do so, which could only mean that they have to be stopped. Ozpin and Team CRDL looked at the monster with utter fear. To think that someone like Samuel exists in Issei's old world, like John and Issei, they also needed to act quickly or else the Black Arms along with Hades will cause even further problems. Not to mention, there must be gods or other allies colluding with Hades, meaning this is going to cause even more problems. John looked at Issei and spoke. "Dad, I have already packed my stuff. What have the others decided?" "They are all willing to make an alliance with my Earth, regardless of what was going to happen. The only difference, they have to act quickly now that the Black Arms were working with Hades. Dealing with them is our only option." Everyone in the room nodded in agreement as Ozpin spoke. "Very well, I have already prepared the papers as you have asked, your highness." John and Team CRDL will no longer be students of Beacon Academy. Issei nodded as he spoke with a tone of gratitude. "Thank you, headmaster." Issei spoke with a tone of gratitude as he looked towards John and spoke sadly. Issei was happy that his team and Team RWBY were with him and helped him during his dark times, along with Team CRDL. He couldn't be any more grateful to them for protecting and helping John. He did not want to take John away from his friends, but had no choice. The situation was dire and they needed to act quickly. "It's time, say your goodbyes to your friends, cause you won't be seeing them for a while." John nodded as he spoke. "Very well, Dad, I will." Additionally, with the Veil Council asking John to be removed thanks to a bunch of brats, it gets less annoying. Issei and the others nodded as John spoke. "Should have expected this from a bunch of whiny primitives." "Yeah, agreed." Carton mused in agreement as Dove added, "Worse, they wouldn't even care if we are gone. Their fragile egos are hurt, that is why they will keep whining like small babies." Sky responded with a cold tone as several agreed to Sky's words, with Issei giving a sigh due to how much Arcadia now hates the Four Kingdoms due to a certain Nicholas Kane. He can't blame them, and to some extent, Issei wouldn't deny them, but he also does hold some level of dislike. But he wouldn't let it judge people just cause they come from the Four Kingdoms. Scene change. Team RWBY and Team JNPR were explained of the situation, and they were horrified minus the things about Arcadia and the Black Arms. At first they did not mind protesting against the expulsion, but with what Osmond stated and even with Issei speaking, they had to relent and say their goodbyes, as Ruby hugged John for a moment, which soon turned into a group hug, as Nora spoke. "Please, don't forget about us, fearless leader." Nora spoke with sadness, as John rubbed her head for a moment and responded, I won't Nora. "Take care of yourself, vomit boy." Yang spoke with sadness, as John nodded, as he spoke, "Guys, we may not meet each other for days, weeks, and even years, but know this, if we are friends, we will see each other. That is a promise. You have that one right." Lai spoke with happiness, as Ruby added, "Yep, we know we will see each other again." "Then take care of yourselves, guys, and who knows, we will see each other again." John spoke with a sad smile, he really cared for them, and was grateful for helping him, as teams RWBY and PNR respond. "Yes." John soon waves them goodbye as they move towards the location where Ragnarok is, which was one of Issei's personal ships, a space shuttle to be precise, which seemed to be red in color, almost akin to a dragon. It had a red hull, reddish silvery wings which had cockpit and 2 passenger rooms, a lift to connect them and some other storage locations. "Alright John, strap in, Team CRDL are already in the passenger's side of the ship," Issei spoke while heading inside, as John seemed to be a bit glum, regardless he nodded, they both headed to the main cockpit. Issei turned around and felt bad that his son was starting to see them as his friends. He did not want to leave them, but had no choice. Understanding the sadness of his son, Issei spoke. "Once we deal with this mess back at my home, you can go back to Beacon, since we have some work left in the 4 kingdoms." Issei keeps his hand on John and speaks, "You can count on it, John." "Yes Dad." John spoke with a saddened tone, as Issei continued, "If the Black Arm succeed, you know what they will do with your friends, especially with Sun in the last Cetra, plus Weiss, even if her powers are sealed, Carmilla can just create a new Sephiroth, you know what kind of a person she is, right?" John knew what his father was implying, he clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, knowing what they can potentially do. They must be stopped at all costs. John already had an experience with someone turning one of his friends and using them as a test subject courtesy of Carmilla. That psychopath had no empathy for anyone and made him wonder, how did she even fall for her so-called older brother, is beyond for him. "I understand, Dad, let's go." John spoke with a serious tone as Issei nodded, he started the ship and it started to head towards Arcadia. Once they reached Arcadian space, the soldiers were able to recognize Ragnarok and they greeted them as proceeded. "Welcome to the Arcadian airspace, Emperor." Issei nodded as he spoke, "Yes, and I am accompanied with the Prince and the Royal Guard, comprising of Cardin Winchester, Russell Thrush, Dove Bronzewing and Skylars. Inform the Supreme General about his." "As you wish, Your Highness." Issei cuts off the call, as he looks at John, who seemed to be having a better mood. "Seems like someone is excited to meet his harem." John shook his head and spoke, "No, that's not it, it is just that. Tell your old man, you miss being in between those breasts, don't you John?" John shook his head and tried to deny it, but his perversion got the better of him as he had a grin, seeing that John is basically a blonde version of his father, but with some changes. Issei chuckled seeing John sighed as he spoke, "You can have a meet with them once we head back, in fact they are all dying to have a reunion with you." "But, how can I miss the anniversary celebration? I am pretty sure my family must be preparing for your 30th anniversary," John retorted as Issei responded. "Though after that, this is not a problem." John nodded, as he wondered on how they are going to react with his return. Soon enough, the ship landed as they were greeted by Jean, as he spoke, "I am glad you all could arrive, and I believe your father has informed you about the situation. Right?" "Yes, he told me about the Black Arms and Samuel, it is going to be a massive problem." Jean nodded in understanding as she spoke. "For now, take some rest, we will be leaving in 3 days, since today is a day of celebration. I would suggest you all to not be pressurized by this." Jean spoke with a smile, as John nodded. Soon enough someone else rushed to them in high speeds and gave them a bone-crushing hug. The person was described to be a tall, beautiful blonde woman with blue eyes, she has long hair and is tied into a ponytail in the end. She is wearing white robes around her arms and blue cloth on her chest up to her thighs. The rest of her body is armed with blue armor around her arms, chest, and legs. She is also wearing a long skirt that is facing the side and the back of her legs. This was Saffron Arc, the second oldest daughter and child of Issei Hyoudou and Juniper Arc, 26 years. "Oh how I have missed you." John Saffron rubbed her chin towards John making him flustered, as she turned to her father and rested her head on him and spoke, "Happy anniversary, Dad." "Thanks Aff." Saffron gave a smile to Issei, her father cherished and cared for all of his children, and Saffron was another that inherited her father's protective nature, which was amplified to certain degrees that won't be revealed for the sake of everyone. While the situation was serious, they are not going to ruin any fun they were supposed to have today, since it was an important day for the Emperor and Empress of Arcadia. Additionally, time here in Remnant moves faster than in the DxD universe, so that was something they had an advantage of. Saffron, then Spol. My family are waiting for the two of you, let's have a proper celebration, and Mom is the most excited. Saffron explained as she split up from her father and brother, as Issei spoke, well then let's go. Issei turned to Jean and spoke, you coming? I am almost done with my work, so I will be joining you guys soon. Issei nodded as the trio headed there, they can enjoy for the day, due to them having their anniversary, however after that they will have to prepare for what comes next, thanks to Hades and the Black Harms. Scene change. In the DxD world. Hades' realm underworld, 5:30 am. The entity was walking towards another, as he had the appearance of a tall skeleton dressed in attire worn by high priests, gives off a creepy aura. Despite having no eyes, his eye sockets can glow to give the appearance of eyes. So is the poison ready, Nicholas? Hades asked, to which Nicholas shook his head and spoke. Not yet, Carmilla is hard at work, but it will be soon, in a week or two at most. Nicholas was described to be a man of light blonde hair, it was long and flowing. Blue medieval style clothing, wearing what looks like armor on his chest and legs. He held a bow that was holstered from behind. I see, Hades mused as Nicholas assured him, worry not, once the poison is prepared, nothing is going to stop us. Nicholas's words made Hades nod, the poison that Carmilla was working on surpassed Samuel's original poison, implying that it can even kill dragon gods, no matter how strong they are. But until then, I have something else that can keep them at bay. Nicholas spoke with a grin, as Hades knew what this meant as he spoke, I see, so you intend to use that girl to control them, right? Indeed, in her free time Carmilla managed to break her, and now she is nothing but a mindless slave, would you be so kind and bring her here? Nicholas spoke while motioning to two Grim Reapers who nodded, as they nodded. Moments later, they bring her here, she was a beautiful foreign girl who appears to be in her late teens, however her look was completely hollow, like she was devoid of anything. She has long purple hair and orange eyes. She wears a white dress typical of female noble devils that exposes much of her large breasts, with high slits and long sleeves. She also wears a black miniskirt. The girl was Ingvild Leviathan, she was abducted from Grigori months ago, and ever since, Carmilla has been tormenting the girl, thus breaking her, as a result she was nothing but a toy, a puppet that would serve them. Hence why she has a hollow look on her face, and you can thank the Black Arms for that. Nicholas had a grin as he rubs her head and spoke with a malicious grin, well Hades, will she do, she can control dragons, and that is a trait we can't ignore, we can even control beings like Great Red and Office, potentially. Her Longinus Nereid Curie is still in its initial stages, however it can be worked on, and eventually we can even control them, and even potentially those from Arcadia. Hades looked at him for a moment, his malicious and ruthless personality even caught him off guard, regardless him and his allies were a lot helpful to him, and he will achieve his goal of dealing with those that would get in his way, as well as defeat those from the other world. Very well Nicholas, I believe you and your Black Arms will do a good job, the factions won't know what hit them, Nicholas nodded to Hades' words and spoke. Indeed Hades, and we will eliminate those Longinus users and other powerful beings like this don't deserve to live, and we will be the ones that will defeat those beings from another world. Nicholas's words only gave assurance to Hades, since while they had a common goal, his was slightly different. Nicholas wanted complete and utter control of Arcadia, he hated Issei for ruining any and all possible chances of that. So he had to ally with someone that held a grudge towards Issei, and that was Hades. Hades always feared Issei ever since he returned back from Samuel's poison, and it only increased when Issei was revealed to be the Emperor of Arcadia and is a dragon god, capable of abilities that can take on even the mightiest of gods. Additionally he even feared Juniper and Willow, deeming them as abominations that don't deserve to live, he was told about them courtesy of Nicholas. He needed to deal with them, since beings like these aren't supposed to exist. Hades also did not have any interest over Arcadia, unlike Nicholas, so they joined hands. So let's begin, Hades. Nicholas spoke with a grin looking at Ingvild, who will be a handy weapon for them. However, they don't know that Arcadia is already on its way to deal with them. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.